guys, so it's 20 here and welcome back to Marble Mountain. Today's episode we're going to be working on a town in the region of Marble Mountain. We've been pretty much focusing on Montana, which is the capital, and I've been pretty keen to get out of the city and start working on some of the other areas within the whole map, because technically that is the reason why I started this series in the first place, is basically to build a whole bunch of small towns and of course a big city too, because you got to have a big city as well. But I'm pretty keen to work on some smaller places, and this episode is the first one where we're finally going to be doing that. Now, this town doesn't have a name just yet, so if you want to hit me up some town names, then go and do that in the comment section. We'll probably be naming it in the next few episodes at least. And the idea behind this particular town is that it is it's still quite close to the city. I reckon it's about a 45-minute drive. It's it's not exactly a really far away town. It's probably a town where people are still commuting to work, and it's probably just an area that has slightly cheaper rent, slightly cheaper houses, and might be a place where people are probably still buying up if they're leaving the city, or if they have a hobby farm or something like that. So there will be quite a lot of farms around this area. This is probably going to be one of the more farm regions of Marble Mountain. There will definitely be a lot of other farming regions, but in terms of how close it is to the city, this one's probably an area that will be exporting probably a lot of it to the city. And because it is still quite close to the capital, I didn't want it to have a very country feel to it. I did want it to still have, a little bit of a metropolitan atmosphere. It is definitely a small town and it does hold for its own, but I did want it to kind of be a little bit different to the other towns that will be way further out of the city. So there's not going to be like any shopping malls or any anything that you can't get within the city, because technically people who live here can drive to the city quite easily. But some of the other towns that I'll be building in later episodes, they will be like very much on their own, not very many other larger cities or towns closer by. So I kind of went into this project, this build, thinking that, and I had a lot of fun doing it, because it's just a lot. It's a very different type of build than I would be doing in the city. So I've done a few things as I've been yapping away, and basically what you probably notice is that there is quite a big intersection, quite a big exchange going into the town, probably too big for what the town is, like the size of the town. And what I'm trying to do with that is I wanted it to look like there has been quite a recent addition to the infrastructure and the road layout of the town within the last 15-20 years, and that is this intersection and also the widening of the road. So there is this highway that stretches through the town too. This is the highway that goes across the river. You saw me build the bridge, and basically this is something I've noticed quite a lot in small towns, is there are, these highways that go through the towns, and that is basically where the town is established. The highway has been there for a really long time, and it's been slowly developed from, small roads to, wider like highways, and then they basically turn into these multi-laned highways eventually. And what I wanted to do is make it look like there was just this 2-lane highway at some stage, let's say 20 years ago, and then they've decided to widen it up, so the town would have then been, quite dramatically changed as the highway was widened, and now there is this other street that is running parallel to it. And what that has also done is that it's made the bridge crossing the river, basically rather than creating a new bridge, they have just built one new bridge and left the old bridge that was probably still quite historical, and maybe it's just been there for a while, but it still holds for its own. And that bridge has been left, and rather it being a a bridge that is going in either direction. It is now just a bridge that is dedicated to one lane of traffic, if that makes sense. I'll talk a lot better about this in the live play, which will be happening about the 16-minute mark. It's a pretty long episode actually, and I'm gonna be honest, it's long because I was getting right into this, and I'm also gonna spoil you guys, and well, I'm most probably gonna spoil you guys, and you're probably gonna get another episode of Marble Mountain probably midweek, because I'm just building like crazy, and I probably should be releasing this on the weekend, well, sorry, the next one on the weekend, but I kind of just want to give it to you a little bit early, just so you can really sink your teeth into everything that I've been building, because yeah, I'm getting pretty into this whole small town area. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the town. In this episode, I just pretty much build the bulk of the town, and you know, wanted it to have a small area for farming, and that's pretty much all I get done in this episode. And in the next one, I will branch out and do some more stuff that's based on the farm area of this. And last episode, I was talking about the inspiration for this area. I was calling it San Francisco Bay. Also, just outside of San Francisco. I also referred to it as a desert, which is completely incorrect. Apparently, this whole area is quite lush and green, and I think some of the hillsides are a little bit drier than other areas, but generally, this is a pretty agriculture dense area with quite a lot of other small towns and cities that lie around here, which I find crazy, because Australia, like, we have pretty much the main cities, the main capital cities of each state, and then anything outside of there is pretty much just a very small town. So it always blows my mind checking out other countries and how big some of their cities are, because some of those cities actually just completely trump Sydney, where I live. It's quite interesting when I fly over places like America, and you know, you just discover new cities and go, what the hell, I didn't know that city even existed yet. Yeah, it's like a city that's bigger than some of the cities in Australia. It just goes to show how underdeveloped Australia really is. But that's also one of the reasons why I love this place so much. But yeah, basically this whole Central Valley area is perfect inspiration for this particular place that I'm working in Marble Mountain, because it is this whole area in Marble Mountain is a really agriculture focused area, and we also have the rolling mountains that lie between this area and the city, which is similar to the Bay Area. There's also the windmills that I'm going to be putting on the mountain that are also around here too. And the desert is, I know it is still quite far away from San Francisco, but I guess the scale that I'm going for with Marble Mountain, that is sort of the idea of it too. So there are a lot of California references in Marble Mountain, if you haven't already guessed it already. I actually want there to be so many farms around this area. I want there to be I want to be making quite a lot of cash actually in Marble Mountain from the farms that sit around here. And look, we're still ages away from doing that, but I am slowly just building up the infrastructure so that we can start doing that too. Some of the things that I'm doing on screen, so I know I keep on talking about other things rather than the things that I'm actually doing. What I'm doing right now is I'm working on this stream that is going into the water, going into the lake. And this stream obviously isn't flowing any water. Basically, you can't really get a good small amount of flow from the water that is in City Skylines. So I ended up just dragging down a path instead, and I still think the result's pretty cool. I think it works somewhat. These bigger rocks I started placing down just as, you know, just to see if they fit, and they're probably a little bit too big, but I kind of like the look. It just gives a very unique touch to this whole area, and I don't know, perhaps maybe that's like a feature for this particular town. Maybe that's one of the reasons why this town was established in the first place. Something about the fresh water or something about the falls. I'll talk a bit more about that in a live play. And yeah, I've just built like a quite small commercial area for the town, mostly centered around the main avenue. These shops probably would have been really greatly affected by the widening of the highway. And I reckon quite a lot of people of the town were probably quite pissed off by it. You know, I think when the government does things like that, you know, changes the infrastructure, there's always a massive divide between people who welcome it and people who don't. It probably changed the way the town operates so much, and who knows if it maybe increased the amount of tourism that were, or people coming into the town, or whether it's decreased it because it's too much change, and maybe the highway has increased the amount of traffic that's going by. Who knows? At the moment, we have zero traffic going along that highway because it basically doesn't connect up to anything. I think that'll be a job for probably a live stream or something like that. By the way, my internet is silky smooth. I have now done a live stream to my patrons, and I'm going to do a few more just as test runs, just so that I can get my act together and figure out how I live stream in the first place. And we're looking at doing some live streams pretty soon on YouTube, which I'm pretty excited for because I love it. I think it's so much fun live streaming. I love watching people's live streams, and Marble Mountain lends itself really nicely for live streams too, because I do get a really nice frame rate, and the work that I'm doing here really works well for live streaming. So that'll be coming up pretty soon. Not too soon, but you know, within a month or so. I've just built in some industry too, because there is going to be a fair bit of farming around here, so the town does need to sustain like a lot of that agriculture within here as well, even though a lot of it is going out into the city as well. But I will be putting in a fair bit of industry around here, probably more so than a lot of other towns that don't really have an industry focus. But this particular place, there is like a big industry focus, and there'll be quite a lot of factories. And even being so close to the city, I think that a lot of industry probably leaves the city to then build out here. So you will probably have some factories that are much larger and would probably be further into the city, but maybe this would be a more of a sustainable place for them to, you know, have an industry like this, because it only takes 40 minutes to get into the city and, you know, so out of the city into a place like this. So, yeah, I don't really do any big industry at the moment, but that is definitely the idea for later on. And yeah, some suburbs too. I actually did a little bit of detail on these suburbs, and by a little bit, all I really did was just drag some fences, and I think that adds heaps. It's amazing what just having a couple of backyards can really do. And yeah, I mean, that is such an easy technique to create a bit of detail. Yeah, and just a couple of trees just to hide some of the imperfections, but really I didn't really do like a hell of a lot. And now I am starting to place down some farms. I really only placed down a couple because I just wanted to get a bit of an idea of how I'm going to build some of these things, but generally I'm still a little bit lost with how I'm going to build some of these farms, because I'm, you know, I guess there's a whole bunch of different types of ways I can do this, and think about it when I'm going into it. Basically, a lot of the towns, a lot of the farms that are close to towns, and close to the suburbs and stuff, they're generally hobby farms, and you know, they're not big industry areas, and they're usually a lot smaller. So they're the sort of farms that I'm placing around this area. Whereas across the highway on the left-hand side, that's where I'll be having a lot larger farms that will be, you know, having a lot of jobs and will probably be run by bigger corporations. Whereas the farms that I'm building right now, they could be owned by families and like smaller business owners. So, and I still don't even really know what I want to call these farms. They're orchids at the moment, but you know, the types of plants that are on these farms, they could be really anything. But yeah, real minimal detail work, and really just trying to get my feel for it. I'm really enjoying placing down these dirt roads just because it's kind of fun placing down something that I haven't really placed down too much of in Marble Mountain yet. It's really cool to be working out in an area like this because it just, I don't know, it's fun seeing the different techniques of building, and I always love building like outside of towns and outside of cities because I always find the way that like infrastructure and city planning interact with the natural environment, and dirt roads are kind of like the end of the line in terms of infrastructure. It's pretty much that is as far as we've gone, and yeah, that's always fun to be placing them down. All right, that's pretty much it for this time lapse. I'm going to go into a live play and I'll talk a bit more about all the things that I've been doing. So I don't actually have a name for this town just yet. So if you want to hit me up with some sort of name suggestions for this town, and I'll start implementing that in the next few episodes. I think the best suited name would be something that has something to do with the falls which are here. So some sort of name that has the word falls in it, I think would be really cool, like Griffith Falls, or I don't know, $2 Falls. Don't call it $2 Falls, that's a terrible name. Call it something, and I'll do it in the next episode. Actually, I won't do it in the next episode because I'm going to start building that episode straight after I finish doing the live play because I'm damn excited to keep on working around here. I'm going to give you a tour of everything I've built, but first I'm just going to show you how close we are to the city, to the capital. So that's not very far. I reckon there will be some, this might be a little bit of a holiday destination for some people, but generally I think that people are probably doing a drive commute from here into the city. This is quite doable. That is not a huge distance. Other places within Marble Mountain are much bigger distances, and I think anything past here would be considered to be quite far away from the city, at least in my mind. You know, obviously it takes like a minute for a sim to get from here to here, but I like to imagine that, you know, we are looking at, you know, like let's imagine that from here to here is like 45 minutes. Does that make sense? I think you kind of have to use your imagination for this map because we are probably a little bit too close to be justifying little towns like this, but you know, whatever. All right, a tour. I'm going to start with a bridge. So the bridge is obviously we have the older bridge here, and then we have the more recent addition just here too. I think they work pretty nicely together. Obviously it's a bit strange seeing them separated like that, but I see this so often with bridges. I see the old one and then the highway extension to the side of it. And it's similar for the actual town too. So I imagine that this road was the original road that led into the town, and it probably connected up to a much smaller highway at some stage. But obviously it's now 2019 and we've made some additions to the city, so they've put in a bit more infrastructure, as this highway is probably a lot more of a main road these days, and yeah, now the town's a little bit wider. So it now has this wide avenue, and I just decorated it with these larger pine trees. They're a P Delmo, and they're damn fine. Really like the commercial area of the downtown, actually. I think what makes it really work is this back street, and then all the parking lots that sit around here. Quite a lot of parking, but that's kind of the case everywhere. Everyone's driving. And I really made a point of putting down a lot of petrol stations, because that's generally the bulk of what that's what people are usually coming to these places. They're here for a quick stop at the petrol station. They might stop at a diner, and then that's generally their time in a place like this. We also have a fair bit of farming as well. We've just got the three blocks at the moment. I'm trying to figure out a smart way of having my farmyards, because obviously, I mean, we're losing money at the moment because I've only just plopped them down. But in terms of the district, I don't know if that's too big for a farming district or whether that's too small. You know, maybe I extend it all the way around here, or maybe I make it a bit shorter. I haven't really quite decided how I'm going to divvy up the districts for the farming, but I might do that in the next episode and talk about it a little bit more. But at the moment, we've just got a mix of vanilla, which I think turned out just fine. And then we've also got the other one that I downloaded, which I think works a lot better. Really want to work around here, get a bit more on that train line too, make it look a little bit better. And this was just a surprise. Like, I really didn't expect to go into this much detail or even have a river that extended quite like this one. I pulled these rocks out as a joke just to sort of be like, oh, let's see if this one fits, and I think it's fine. Like, I think it works pretty well. It's obviously a little bit big, but I think it looks pretty cool, and I'm happy to keep it like that. It's a shame we can't get a little bit of water flowing through there, but that's fine. Guys, that's pretty much it. I am pretty stoked to be working around here, and I'm going to dive straight into some more builds, and you guys just have to wait for another week, so sorry about that. But if you have enjoyed this episode, please leave some nice feedback in the comments, or even by rating up this video. That would help me out a whole bunch. And I'm also on Patreon. If you want to support me there, you can also grab a copy of the save game and all the extra goodies that patrons get. But until next time, guys, have a great week, and I'll see you in the next video. See you later.